this breaks Betsy's record. She's the highest.
Yeah, maybe
Oh.
It's like the cops may shine lights on you. We don't
Yeah.
want- I don't want you to.
I actually meant for one of the other
Ask me questions,
commissioners.
I'm gonna start interrogating.
Use the mics that you have. Bring that one back. We need
Where
that.
were you? What's in
Musical
the glove
mics.
compartment?
You guys will just have to share.
Can you just
that.
hand the sign sheet to?
Okay. No, that's
Are
okay.
we on?
Are you sure?
I'm still.
Okay. Yeah, we're on. Yes.
Okay, we're ready. This is the May 25th, 2022 meeting of the Walpole Conservation. And we have with us this evening our first hearing, and we'll read this into the, Stephanie will read this into the record.
In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and additionally, in accordance with the Walpole Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw and regulations, notice is hereby given of the intent of Michael Freiberger, 965 West Street, map 38, lot 57 in Walpole, Massachusetts, to construct a landscape nursery for architectural use with associated gravel access road, parking, material storage areas, and garage. Plans are on file with the Conservation Commission's office. The public hearing on the above matter will be held on April 13th, 2022, beginning at 7:30 p.m. All interested persons are requested to be present. Contact Conservation at 508-660-7253.
You're representing the applicant.
For the record, Scott Henderson of Henderson Consulting, the project civil engineer. Also here next to me is Russ Waldron of Applied Ecological Sciences, our wetland scientist, and the applicant Mike as well. So we had our first public hearing, I believe it was a month ago now. We had some additional work to do on a few things, wetland replication, drainage, some additional detail on the site plans, and some items that came up during that first hearing. Just to make it clear, we are going to have to continue this hearing again. We're still working on the wetland replication. Since submitting these plans, we've had some discussions about the location specifically of the replication area. We had spread it out over 3 locations shown on this plan, but have come to the conclusion that ideally it should all be located in one spot. We have our second wetland crossing. As you may recall, this project is 2 wetland crossings for the access roadway, and the second one is probably the most prevalent, or it is the most prevalent and extensive alteration of that existing BBW. We had 2 replication areas shown, one on either side here. We went out with the survey crew, located some trees.
What sheet are you referencing?
This is sheet C4.
4?
Yeah, the site layout plan. This is the one that shows the whole site. We located some additional trees in that area, trying to balance a couple things. Providing a 1.5 to 1 replacement ratio, but also this whole site is wooded, so that any location where we're gonna produce wetland replication, and you have to lower grade to do that, that can't impact existing trees there. So trying to balance not clearing as many trees, but producing that viable replication area. We had looked at, as a team, an alternate location, which is a slightly different wetland pocket on the east portion of the site that we aren't really proposing any work. The reason for that was that those grades are much more level. It's easier to be able to lower that grade, but it isn't in the wetland pocket we're altering. And so, as a team over the last week or so and in the coming weeks, we're going to evolve a wetland replication design on the northern end of this second wetland crossing sort of the shaded area here. This will be extended. We are doing some additional soil testing this Friday, putting in some monitoring wells. It's a unique wetland. Most wetlands are very flat. They collect water. It's sort of the reason that they evolve. This one, there's a unique sort of groundwater breakout occurring to the east of our roadway across an abutting property. And that wetland in and of itself is at about a 5 to 8% grade. So it's a wetland on the side of a hill. Hydrology is a little challenging. We think we figured it out. So that's pretty much all I'll bring up, regarding that tonight. The additional information shown in the plans, things that were either requested under Landis's review or during that first public hearing. We've evolved the erosion control plan. That is sheet C6, I believe. If you want to look at it. I had a very general site preparation plan. This has some actual sediment basins graded out, shows stockpile areas, more thorough erosion control line. The following sheet C7 on that plan set, does have details relative to that, actual erosion control specs. The plans currently do show straw or hay bales. We're going to be changing that to mulch stock. As I hear at the request of the commission, that's your typical request. So that was updated and will be updated on the next plan set. We have snow storage areas included on the layout in the sheets C5A and 5B, the more detailed grading and utility sheets. We've picked snow storage areas that make sense and that you can viably plow the access road, stockpile that snow, and have it drain as it melts into our stormwater system. So that's on there. At the first hearing, we had done some preliminary soil testing, but nothing extensive that covered every infiltration system. A few weeks ago, I went out with the town engineer, Carl Balduff. We did, I believe, 5 additional test pits. We did in situ percolation tests and hydraulic conductivity tests to support the drainage design. I updated the drainage relative to those. The drainage actually got slightly smaller because the soils were better than what I had assumed in some areas. Made some adjustments, was able to eliminate one basin. The original plan set had a second one at the northeast corner of the site, off the edge here, but I was able to resize this basin and collect all the runoff into that. So the second basin is no longer there. Allows us to do a little bit less tree clearing, so that was a net benefit. The soil testing info can be found in the existing condition sheet, C3, if anyone's interested in the details of that and the results of those perk tests. We included a retaining wall specification. So on the plans here, there's a few retaining walls shown, pretty small, all of them non-structural, trying to keep the height at 3 feet or less. But we will be using a large block for those. Ready rock is the most common name for those, that specific block. There's a detail sheet, I believe it's either 9 or 10, that has information for those retaining walls. Tightened up the limit of clearing line in the tree line. Landis has asked me to, on what is hopefully the final set of plans, to put a very clear-cut limit of work line. I will be adding that to the plan. But for reference tonight, where you see the tree line or erosion control line, that's more or less the limit of work. And that's pretty much it. I think those are the crux of most of the updates to the plan. So we can field questions, and then we're going to be requesting continuance, and hopefully next time we come back we'll have a complete and thorough wetland replication design that we'll be able to close this out.
Landis?
Yep, so I looked at the revised plans and just briefly looked at the stormwater report. I know there was still work being done on the infiltration basins. Scott's already brought up most of the comments that I made to him regarding the replication area. I felt like all the replication should be in the area of alteration and not out to a different wetlands area clearing. So they're working on that, as Scott's already discussed. Then also just the construction sequencing. I wanted them to include the replication area. it's my understanding that a more detailed replication area will be submitted by Russ Waldron once they lock down the area and the type of vegetation that's going to be planted, and the elevation and soils and all the information required for a replication area. The only other thing was for the culverts for the driveway, I think 4 culverts at the second crossing along the driveway. They're all bunched together, and my question was if they could be spread out a little bit more. I wasn't quite sure what the hydrology was there, but if the flow between one side and the other could just be spread out. And I think that Scott said he was gonna look at the possibility of doing that.
Yeah, do you want to touch on that quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so that can be updated. So it's sort of, again, unique.
Which drawing is this?
C5A, the sheet 5 in the PDF. So to the bottom of the plan here, to the east of the driveway, you have this second wetland crossing pocket. You'll see the flags start at a stone wall. If you're out on site, there's a very level, clear field off-site to the east here, the rear of these abutting parcels, non-wetland. Wetland's pretty far away, the other pocket. And just at a point at the base of that wall, water perks out. It looks like groundwater breakout, but it's a very unique situation. I've never really seen it before. That water kind of concentrates in a swale down this hill, and then as that grade starts to get more flat, the water disperses, and it's created that wetland over time. But within the wetland itself, it's on the side of a hill. It's a strange thing. So I had the 4 culverts just in the center of that, knowing the water kind of collects there. We'll go under our new driveway and continue. Landis brought up a good point that, if we could spread that flow out, it's probably more beneficial for the lower end of that BVW, and we're actually going to look at using one of these culverts to feed some of that water into the new replication area. So whereas that same water creates that wetland now, the replication area can benefit from some of that. So the revised plans will have these 4 barrels spread out, right, 2 in the middle, 1 off to the side going to our replication area, and the other one just a little bit uphill, so that if there's a significant concentration of water, then that one will flow. So.
Anything else on this?
Nope, those are pretty much the comments that I forwarded to the applicant and is in my report.
Okay. Dean?
No questions.
Bailey?
No questions.
Doug?
One question I have is, in your calculations on the water flows, you have a truck wash area situated right next to the leaching field. Is that, all the calculations include those, how's that?
Yeah, so that is a temporary truck washing area. So what will happen in terms of construction sequence, let me get to that plan just so I can.
That's just during construction?
Yeah, so the site preparation plan here, when we start, we're gonna have to start off the road, clear trees, and sort of build this road as a temporary construction road as we go, just to be able to clear and grub trees. So there'll be a truck washing area here temporarily, but once we get to the main upland area, and this is all cleared, this is just when we have trucks that come in for, bringing material in and out, if we need, deliveries of leaching galleys and things like that. The truck will stage there on the way out, be sprayed down, wash the tires, and then it will drive out so we're not tracking onto West Street. After construction's all done, this goes away, and this just is part of the driveway here. The septic system will be done after that. It's one of the last things we want to do. You don't want much for construction equipment meandering around the site. And we're going to fence off this leaching area so that it's not compressed or compacted during construction. So, yeah, this is just temporary. And in terms of hydrology, that's just a construction thing. After that, we're only accounting for rainfall with our drainage. So the leaching field should be out of the way of a lot of action, and that's preferred.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Doug?
That's it.
Okay. Emilio?
No questions.
Al?
Well, when I look at the layout of the area where you're going to be doing things, I see a building, and then on the end of the building, I see a shape with the label fuel. What's that mean?
So there's a chance that Mike may want to have a fuel storage container on site for whatever trucks and, equipment that's working on the site, front-end loader, there'll probably be an excavator. If you have trailers coming in to get loaded up with nursery stock and things like that, you're gonna need skid steer, stuff like that. If we choose to go for, to have fuel on site, we have to go through a state permitting process for that fuel tank, and also go to the fire department. They have oversight into that. I have a general note in the plan that there's several things that will be permits beyond this, that may or may not happen, but we can report back to Landis as those do happen, and one of those may be, a fuel storage container. It doesn't mean that Mike is actually gonna do it. It's just keeping a space, available for that.
Is that fuel storage tank in the ground or above ground?
That would be most likely above ground. So usually I see typically a double wall above ground tank with a storage area. So you have to have a spill containment system designed for that. So that's usually a poured concrete slab with some sort of curb, so that if that tank and the second wall of the tank both fail, then if that's discharged, it's stored in that containment area. And then there
I
has to be.
think we need to know more about that, because that's a direct shot into the wetlands there. And it's also right next to the railroad tracks, so I think we need some more information on the fuel tank.
Just like a spec of the tank itself, you're saying?
Yeah.
What?
Just like the spec of the tank itself you're looking for?
No, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna install it, what kind of a tank, and what the containment area and all that kind of stuff.
Can I ask you, if you do decide to put something like that in, do you have to provide that to the fire department?
Yes.
So could it be something that was conditioned if they decide to put in the fuel tank, that they provide us with the details?
Yeah, I think they have to come before us.
You want them to come before
Yeah.
us?
So how about we can strike it from the plan for now. Could be a condition that if we do come do that, we come back to the commission, because that's far later in the project, and again, something we might not actually do. And then we can come back and introduce that, if that's something that the commission wants.
If you don't want to address it now, then that's your.
Just thinking
your
time-wise, it does take some time to work out. We don't actually have a building there. We don't have the utilities in yet that the fire department may look for. So it's sort of a chicken and egg situation there. So, we can address that.
Okay.
Next
Or
time
you
you
could
hear from
condition
us.
it, Al, in the order of conditions, that if they decide to put it in, that they provide us with the details at the time.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Please identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, I'm Joe Simone, I'm a butter to Mr. Freiberg.
If you can
Can you
just grab the
say,
microphone, you're talking to it, thank you.
Joe Simone and a butter to Mr. Freiberg. I'm at 911 West Street, kind of northeast of where your property is. I butt up against in the rear end of the property. And I'm just a little uncertain about the plan itself. Is this going to be for other contractors to go through you, Mr. Chairman, in and out of your business to purchase materials, or is it your personal?
Yeah, it'd be private.
Speaking to the mic, please, Mike.
Yes, it would be private,
Okay.
not for other contractor use.
And also a prime concern through you, Mr. Chairman, again, is the traffic on that road could get pretty bad in the morning and the evening, and I'm apprehensive about it being worse, because we walk along that street, and it's something you have to be careful of with the traffic the way it is. Any more traffic, I'm very leery of that, so.
I don't think there's going to be constant traffic of tractor trailers in and out of there. I mean, you're talking maybe one every couple weeks. It's not that big of an operation.
I will say, not to interrupt, we've approached the building department regarding the use of the property. It's classified as an agricultural use. It will be classified under 61A by the state. And we have confirmation that the use in and of itself is allowed by right in this situation. We also approached the planning board about the subdivision of the property to create this parcel for this use. They understand what's being done, and there's no permitting on the forefront for the future for the project other than conservation. Here, we're focused on impacts to the wetlands and stormwater solely.
Yeah, I would just say, I understand your question, traffic is not an issue of conservation.
It's out of your purview at this
So
point.
did you have anything else?
Yeah, I did. As far as odors and noise level, is that within conservation?
Noise is not, odors is kind of a stretch. So, what is your concern?
Okay, so mulch is to be stored there. Is mulch going to be processed there?
No,
No grinding machines or
No.
stone crushing machines for crushed bank or anything like that?
no.
Okay. As far as the liquids from the trucks, if you're servicing them there, you intend to service trucks there? Is there appropriate, I didn't catch that part of it, excuse me, of where the plan was to catch any fluids that might leak from trucks or in some remote way affect anybody else in the neighborhood. It is primarily a residential neighborhood with, I understand, it's rural behind, and he can do agricultural supposedly there. I just don't know what the parameters of agricultural is. Can you service trucks there? And if you do, are there going to be fluids that are leached into the soils, or what is the,
So I can address that. So the building, being a maintenance facility, at least partially for vehicles and equipment on site, is subject to state plumbing code. So typical to any garage use, any commercial garage, you have to have floor drains. Typically, those floor drains are routed through an oil gas separator to eliminate that, hydrocarbons and things that can't wind up in the sewer, and then that overflow goes to the sanitary system. In this case, we don't have that. We have septic. So there'll be a septic system for sanitary, and those floor drains will drain into industrial wastewater holding tanks. It's effectively a tight septic tank that's buried. It's registered with the state, and there's a program. And so any flows into that from the floor drains will be fully contained. Those are double-walled tanks. There's alarms on them so that volumes are assessed. If you reach a certain point and the tank's more than half full, an alarm will go off, and then Mike will have to get it pumped out. And there's also a requirement to report every year to DEP, to the state, whether or not those tanks have been pumped. So even if they're not full, they have to be pumped every year. So any fluids, oils, antifreeze, things like that, hydraulic fluid, any sort of equipment, all that maintenance has to happen inside the building and within the containment limits of that floor drain system. And then none of that can be discharged into storm control, so stormwater BMPs won't be subject to those, or the septic system. So it's a prevention measure, so it's pretty heavily regulated, and will be subject to that. When the building is built, in a building permit application is filed, detailed plans for that have to be included in order for the town to give Mike a building permit for the building. So that's,
okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, approximately, and then this might be, again, out of your purview, but how many vehicles are,
As far as our own equipment,
yeah, at your present size?
8 to 10 trucks.
And you're moving your whole location to that area from 1A? You're on
Correct.
1A right now? All right. Storage material like fertilizers and such, are they contained and?
Yeah, it's same thing as part of the building plan. They'll have to be contained.
Okay. A buffer zone around the property, his property from rural to resident to R1, is there a mandatory buffer zone that they have to adhere to?
It's really not our issue.
Okay. And I guess that other things are sort of out of your issue too that I have here, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I thought of something while those questions were coming. So are you gonna store salt on the site?
Likely.
And where would that be stored? Inside?
That will be one of those bins that's off to the side over there, where it's labeled, I think does it say salt on there now? Or it says mulch and loam?
Mulch, loam, miscellaneous.
So the salt should be
It'll be-
in a flat area, it should be covered, and there should
Yeah.
be a lip, really.
Yeah, so that will have, it'll be a poured concrete slab, so each of these storage bins, poured concrete slab, the back and the sides will have that Deadman block, the 2x3 concrete blocks to build that. And for anything like salt, will have to be covered and have, you know, a storage lip on the
should
front. The
have-
front has to
I mean,
have.
I've seen them, they do
I know.
these concrete little storage areas, and they cover it, and
It's
the
pitched
water
out
still
toward- yeah, it
gets
just
in, and
goes
it
out.
still drains out. So,
Yeah, we'll put a lip there and we'll grade all sides away and cover it.
It'll be overbuilt. It's not fun at 3 o'clock in the morning to pull tarps off salt, so it'll definitely be covered.
Okay. We might want a more detail of that.
Yeah, we could,
Include
yeah.
something in our order.
Yeah, or if we can, he can just do a detail of specific, and we can include it in order as well, yeah.
That
Yeah,
so that
I'll-
it doesn't rain in and wash out.
I'll draw one up, a cross-section and,
Right.
review.
Anything else? Okay.
And can I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
You made me think of another question, just as far as the water quality treatment for the parking area, you have it, I think in the original plan, you had it going into a water quality unit.
Yeah,
But
so.
did you change that to a more sediment forebay, or?
So, it's always been both.
Okay.
So those two catch basins will be storm scepter 450Is, hydrodynamic separator that provides treatment more than is needed then going into the sediment forebays at either end of the drain basin. That provides the requisite pretreatment for the infiltration system. So
Your
it's-
storm scepter and then forebay?
Yeah, it's overbuilt, yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it, okay. So that'll help contain any of the issues with the parking areas. So if trucks come in and they by accident drop a little fertilizer, if they drop a little salt, or they drop a little sediment or something, they have a water quality unit and a sediment forebay, which should collect that material before it gets infiltrated into the ground. And that should be cleaned out regularly.
Okay. When will you be, how much time do you need to prepare what you need to prepare?
The next hearing's in 2 weeks.
Our next hearing is June 8th.
Well, one more. June 22nd, the following one.
June 22nd would be the following, yes.
June 22nd.
Okay, and we need the information in prior, when
Yeah,
you
well,
need it in.
yeah.
When you need it.
Try and do at least a week.
Yeah, the week before is nice. It usually comes in on Thursday or Friday, but at least the
Okay.
week before, it
Try the Monday before.
would be great.
Do we have anything on for June 22nd?
Do not.
Okay, so we'll continue this hearing until June 22nd at 7 PM. Someone make that a motion?
So moved.
We got a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 600. Okay, so this is, okay.
Again? Convenience.
I can take my glasses off.
The benefit of a new newspaper.
I like the rest. It's much clearer.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephanie, you ready? Donald Walpole, Donald Walpole, notice of intent of Conservation Commission, according to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Notice hereby given the intent, Corey, Manchester, 5 Cardinal Lane, map 17, lot 18, in Walpole, Mass., to construct an outdoor patio and landscaping. Plans on file with the Conservation Commission office. Public hearing on the above matter will be held in person on May 11th, beginning at 7:15 PM. All interested persons are requested to be present. Okay, and hearing's been opened and continued. So representing the applicant,
Good evening, everybody. Russ Waldron, Applied Ecological Sciences. So at the last meeting, we were asked to provide some additional details on the plan. One being a wall detail and showing the drainage that goes with that. Another being the erosion control, showing an orange construction fence. And a additional erosion control around the proposed stockpile area. There was a question raised as to why the main erosion control came up this far. The guys at Dunn McKenzie, they put it that way because they figured there's gonna be a lot of material brought in to bring the yard up to finished grade. So they just wanted to make sure that, the neighboring property and everything would be protected, in case, some material get off the truck, from one of the trucks, so they figured they'd leave that there as an option, and then, if they choose it to be necessary, then they can do it. Let's see, and plaques along the 25-foot buffer zone. Can you see them? Well, they know that's got to be done, and but they had a question as far as attaching the plaques. They were thinking posts, pressure-treated posts, or, does the commission have a preference? How the plaques get
We'll use
attached?
granite bounds, they'll land us?
concrete.
Concrete or granite?
yeah.
Concrete or granite bounds.
Concrete or granite?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, good. All right, so what I'll do is I'll get Jim to add those, to position those along the 25, and I'll get you that, probably get you that tomorrow or by the end of the week.
I do see them on the plan,
You see them on the plan?
plaque locations, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Yeah, your eyes are better than mine.
well, I'm closer to it.
Oh, they're conservation markers. Yes, they're lines with a little teeny circle.
Oh, yeah,
And it says conservation markers. It's right under the 1.51 acres.
oh,
It's
okay,
in the middle of the plan. Look below that.
all right, I'll take your word for it.
I forgot about them myself. They're there.
Okay, so we got enough, I guess.
Here we are, Russ. One, two.
Way up there.
Oh, that's where they are up there?
Yeah, they're there.
Okay, good.
10
There, there, there.
1 inch equals 10 feet.
1, 2, 3, 4, here. 5,
Oh, yeah, there's another
Good.
one over there. Okay, 6.
6. Yep, they're 6.
All right.
It goes from the property line on the, what would that be, the west side?
Yeah.
Described here, so that's,
Yeah.
And follows that around. Anything else?
That was all we were tasked to do.
Okay. Landis?
Everything seems fine. I mean, I can send you the spec that we usually send out for the plaques, what we want, like 3x5, environmental plastic or brass. We'll put it in the order too, on bounds.
Yeah.
My conditions, my suggested conditions are just that the erosion control be inspected. That's usually in the boilerplate. Erosion control shall remain in place until approved by the conservation agent to remove. And then I think you had mentioned that the construction of the wall may change, or the material.
Yeah,
So
it's
we can just
still
condition.
kind of an open question, but in all likelihood, it won't be a field stone wall because of price.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
So I think what typically the commission likes is prior to, once you decide what you're gonna use, let us know. We just wanna avoid, we've run across some situations where it's supposed to be like an Allen block professional wall, and then it turns into kind of helter-skelter boulders, so we
Yeah,
just
we
wanna
can do
make
that.
sure that the contractor has chosen a way that would be approved by the commission.
And we would bring that to you?
Yeah, if the commission agrees, we can just make it a condition that the specs be provided to me prior to construction.
not a problem.
Okay. Steve,
No questions, thank you.
Bailey,
No questions.
Doug,
No questions.
Emilio.
Is, on the 25-foot line, is there any kind of barrier or fencing or anything, or is that just open?
We're just gonna leave it open. It's down in the woods,
Okay.
basically.
And you're not intruding into that during construction, you're staying out of that?
No, we've got the wall back 4 feet from the line, specifically so they wouldn't have to get close to it. And, all the wall construction will be done from this, coming in, done from the back, so they don't have to go around and,
Okay, so you're not gonna go over that 25-foot
no,
line?
no, they're not gonna go near it.
All right, that's all I got.
No, Al?
As long as we have a condition regarding the wall, I'm okay with everything else.
One question on your wall detail. You said you got to batter 2 inches for every 1 inch of height. Is that a correct statement? Sounds like that should be maybe 1 foot.
What was
Read
it?
that on the wall detail, the top note on the right-hand side, right there.
I'm not a stonemason, so I assume that, these are gonna be, they're not tall walls.
2
2
inches
inches
for
batter
every
for every
inch.
1 inch doesn't make sense.
You mean
For every 1
lean?
inch of height, you're gonna go 2 inches?
Oh, back lean?
Yeah. I'm assuming that should be 1 foot.
Could be, yeah,
So you want to correct that on the drawing,
yeah.
make a note? If that's what it is, then leave it. If that's not correct, then correct it. Okay, I don't see anyone else here, so, is there anything else you need? All done?
No,
Okay, so make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Okay.
So-
So that's closing the hearing.
Yeah.
So now we have the order with, what do we need? Anything special?
So you're gonna revise you were gonna revise the plan for the detail information?
Just if this needs revision, then revise it. If not,
Yeah, I'll check with them.
you know, it
Was there
just
something
doesn't-
else? No, the plaques are on the plan, so that's
Plaques are on the
fine.
plan.
We can provide the detail in the order, and I was just revising the language, if the wall construction changes, a detail shall be provided to the commission for approval prior to construction.
Okay.
That's,
And that perforated pipe goes all behind the wall
Mm-hmm.
to, and
It'll weep out
any
down below.
drainage, weeds,
Yeah,
okay.
yep.
Okay, so we'll make a motion for the order.
So moved.
We got a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstain.
And Doug abstained, so 402. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have something to sign? Do we have 3 of them to sign? Okay. Okay. Is this to read in? The letter?
Yeah, that's from Carl. This is just all information, so it's his actual comment.
Sign this one here. This forward.
Ready?
Yep.
He has one to have. Another one?
Those 4 in there.
I said 3, and we're going with 4.
Back this way, Jack.
This is the.
Signed it, though.
You didn't.
Land disturbance permit,
Sure.
Conservation Commission,
Stay in.
accordance with Walpole Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw and Regulations, notice hereby given the intent of Jim Johnson, Walpole Town Administrator, for a land disturbance permit application for construction of a new middle school building, associated utilities, including stormwater management facilities, located at 625 Washington Street, Walpole, Mass. Plans are filed at Conservation Commission Office. Public hearing in the above matter held in person April 27th, 2022, beginning 7 p.m. All interested persons are requested to be present. And hearing is opened and continued. Representing the applicant. Oh, wait a minute, I have some for the record, yes, sorry. This is from Carl Bolduff, Town Engineer. He references a number of drawings and reference from the Beta Group letter. Some other memos here, but basically his notes were following. Reviewed the materials noted above. Participated in 2 work sessions with both civil engineer and peer review engineer. The current plan that contains revisions discussed in the work sessions which are beneficial. Site analysis quantifies where the project stands in relation to existing flows and volumes, demonstrates the proposed design is improving, that is reducing off-site flows. Temporary sediment basin memorandum and exhibit demonstrate a workable, if not robust, plan for interim stormwater management. The agent and I have discussed proposed conditions of approval that will allow outstanding items to be completed, reviewed, and approved as the project moves forward. And therefore, I am satisfied with the current design and plan to complete outstanding items should the agent commission wish to move forward. That's from Carl Baldo. Okay. Representing the applicant?
Will Schrafer with Niche Engineering. We are the civil engineer on the project, and I'm the project manager leading the design here. So obviously been here a couple times. One of the things that we heard concerns from both commission, town engineer, and the reviewing engineer was the management of stormwater and the temporary conditions. So we put together a memo with calculation of available storage and kind of what we're expecting for really the worst-case scenario on the site. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what that worst-case scenario in the temporary condition is, what we've been able to grade out for basins, and what our kind of plan is to make sure that the stormwater that's leaving the site is not excessive, and we're able to reduce it, especially in those conditions where we have.
I'm sorry, can you just speak more into the microphone so that the recording can be heard?
Apologies. So we can demonstrate in that interim condition with the new building built, the existing building still functioning, the driveways providing access to the site, as well as the temporary drives that we're hoping to establish to maintain traffic. We'd be able to manage stormwater and make sure that we're not blowing up what's going on down on East Street and Edwards Drive. And we also have, we had also sent in a memo and calculations making sure that we weren't impacting that infrastructure too much. And we'll go through that shortly. So just to go through what we think the worst case scenario for the temporary condition is.
Excuse me, what plan is this?
This is included as an attachment in the memo for temporary stormwater management.
It's online.
So there should be a memo that's temporary stormwater management, and this is pretty much after the text. It would be one of the first attachments.
Thank you.
All right, so in worst case scenario and what we're anticipating for a temporary condition, we're going to be constructing pretty much the line of the driveway that's going to be coming in the final portion of the site, and blocking out as much of this area as possible to provide parking to basically replicate what we're replacing in here, or what we're blowing up in there to build kind of the new school building. So this is going to be temporary parking lot to provide as much parking as we can. We will have this alignment kind of coming down. It's going to connect to the existing drive and maintain some parking spaces below the existing school here. This is the existing school kind of extending up here, and this is the footprint of where the new school will be. So when we were looking at areas for temporary stormwater management, we wanted to kind of avoid all those and impact access and travel around there to the least extent possible. We really tried to target places that we knew could stay open for stormwater management throughout the process of construction, which largely centered around the field, but there were also some other opportunities in between the building and further up. So what we're proposing for helping to manage some of the stormwater that's going to be coming in on this through this driveway is a basin that's basically going in the same spot as one that's going to be there in the permanent condition. It'll be kind of confined to this area just to make sure that we can travel around it, travel around the proposed building, and maintain construction traffic. But this will essentially be intended, and we would want to grade the temporary roadway toward this to manage what's going on in this parking area, which is largely going to be gravel, and the temporary, which is I think just going to be up the binder for the driveway that's coming in, and sending as much stormwater there as we can. In what we graded out, there's about 6,500 cubic feet of storage, which is basically exactly what we would need for what we're anticipating for this area sheeting 2 there. And we think there's an opportunity to swale it in the temporary condition around where the building is going to be and connect it into an existing line that would allow us to go underneath and get into the drainage and not go over this parking lot that we're hoping to maintain in that temporary condition. And apologies, there's also going to be a temporary bus loop or a temporary bus road that comes down this way that allows the buses to kind of go through while circulation is impacted on site. And we're also hoping to construct this what's going to be eventually permanent, but we're just going to build a temporary condition that's basically gravel. Access path for construction. It will be eventually the driveway. We're not proposing to pave it. It's just going to be gravel in the temporary condition, and it would only be used by construction vehicles. So this is what we're proposing for basically managing everything that's coming down off here for that initial driveway off Washington and the walkway that's going to be there. For the new building itself, and just to touch on something that's hit on in the memo and just overall, not all these things are going to be happening all at the same time, which is why we wanted to plan for this kind of worst case scenario where everything was built out and we wanted to maintain access on there. We'll be exploring opportunities to do temporary management in other areas as they make sense, be coordinating with the CM and the athletic director around the fields and everyone who's kind of involved here to make sure that we're tackling all the opportunities that we can, but especially in these calculations in this memo, we wanted to show the areas we thought could be open the entire time that would potentially be affected by all these things. For the new building, there are 4 roof leaders that come off in the proposed condition. There's one that comes off this wing, right here, and then up on that side. This basin that's graded out basically in between the existing building and the proposed building, there's about 40 to 60 feet of space that is available in there We're gonna have a car turnaround that comes in here, which is why we cut the limit of the basin around there. There'll be a car/bus turnaround that allows for pickup and drop off for circulation that's happening in this temporary condition. This basin would be intended to pick up the roof leaders that would be installed kind of as part of these. The inverts for these are about 228, 229, and the bottom of this basin is 226. So it would be intended to basically go to a temporary structure, or a structure that's installed right outside there, and daylight it into this basin, provide management for those pieces of the roof, and then eventually, again, overflow into our closed drainage system connection. There's a potential connection that goes underneath the school that we're investigating that we might send that water to. Otherwise, we'd aim to, again, not have it sheet flow over the parking lot and the driveways that we're installing in temporary condition, but just connect to this trunk line that kind of runs along the south there. So this would be intended for management of those two wings of the roof. There's about 5,500 cubic feet of storage in what's graded out there. Again, we would be flexible and do what we need to maintain access around there, to provide for stormwater when those things are actually installed. But it was a good target. We maintained 15 to 20 feet around each building, so there's still flat areas that are adjacent to both. And it's just showing what's possible in that condition to manage the roof water that's coming off on that particular one. And then, other than that, we're pretty squeezed for space on the site itself. We have the existing building here. We have this driveway that's coming through here. We took these in the available space that was there, but really the best opportunity for temporary stormwater management for the other part of the site is kind of along these fields. So with this bus loop, we pushed it as far south as we could based on the grading, and kind of manufactured as much space as we could between the athletic fields that are here that will be staying functioning and ideally not affected by anything that's going on in the existing interim or proposed condition. So graded out basically a series of stepped basins that's kind of similar to what you see in the proposed condition, where things sheet flow into here and kind of overflow down the chain. That was our intention with what we graded out here. We left a flat area adjacent to the soccer field that is there to not affect it. This is the highest one. It would overflow onto there. This entire, again, stone pathway is going to be graded to flow into these. So these would be intended as kind of on-site management for runoff that's coming off from these, and eventually draining down to, and you can see this depression that's there, that's existing. That's kind of where all the drainage for the site ends up going before it connects to East Street and Edwards Drive. It fills up at times when the infrastructure in there does get backed up, and that's kind of what the intended function is. So we'd be proposing to utilize that, but really kind of manufacture as much as we could before anything gets down there. And part of that, and I've mentioned the trunk line that kind of goes along the south here that picks up all the drainage for the site. That's going to be true in the existing and mostly in the proposed condition as well. I think there's an opportunity to take that directly offline. So right now, all the drainage on the site kind of goes to the trunk line that's around there and eventually goes that way to Edward Drive. So at this last catch basin there, the invert is right around 213, 214. And the bottom of this first basin that we've graded there is about 210. And an interim condition, as long as these basins stay, we think there's an opportunity to, because all these pipes, because a lot of them are noted as probably asbestos-containing material, they're going to be removed as part of the proposed condition anyway. We can just pipe this water that, again, is collecting really everything on the site, the overflows from here, all the existing drainage structures that are going to remain in the interim condition, and send that to this series of basins, give it the opportunity to infiltrate, not send it directly to East Street and Edwards Drive, and really do as much as it can to get into the ground before it goes into the, at times overtaxed infrastructure that is in the roadway there. We're able to grade out around 7,500 cubic feet of storage in this series of stepped basins there, and up to around 204, 204.5. There's about 10,000 cubic feet of storage available in this down here. So what we were able to get for really everything's going to be flowing on the southern side of the site, somewhere around 30,000 cubic feet of storage. We're estimating somewhere in the range of 90,000, 94,000. This is all detailed in the memo. Square feet of impervious from this driveway, the parking that's going to be here, what we're leaving there, and these wings of the school that are draining down to there. So we're able to store right around, it's 3.8 or 4 inches of runoff from that full storm. It's not quite what the 10-year, 24-hour storm is. That's somewhere around 5.35. But I look back at the historical data for Walpole. There have been 4 or 5 storms with rainfall over 24 hours that exceeded what we're able to get in these various basins for that temporary condition. So, that's kind of the definition of a 10-year storm, right? Like, you would expect that if you're looking over the 10-year period. But I think we were able to grade out and just take advantage of the things that are there to the greatest extent possible to make sure that we're not doing anything that we don't want to the system that's downstream there. And for the northern part of the site, we had some better opportunities, especially in this area, which actually ended up being incorporated into the proposed design. There is a large area that doesn't affect any of the athletic fields that we're able to grade out for a pretty significant storage. And this would be intended to pick up the roof runoff that's coming over here. It's going to be directed there in kind of the proposed condition, as well as the roof that would be coming off here. There's around 17,000 cubic feet of storage in the basin that is graded there. There's also a small basin that we would kind of anticipate. The drain that comes out of here is quite a bit lower than the existing grade that is there, so we wanted to just have, for that roof runoff, a small area that would help control it, but it would also flow farther downstream to our larger control basin that we do have there in both the temporary and the proposed condition. And then for this driveway, to make sure that we weren't impacting anything with the athletic fields, we cut back the dimension. It's 24 feet in the proposed condition. We're at 18 or 20 feet in the proposed condition, and graded swales that would direct runoff to here, to a temporary basin that would be graded right around there with about 2,500 cubic feet of storage, as well as back to our large workhorse basin for this northern part of the site with that 17,000 cubic feet. So between a small basin that's graded here for the roof overflow and really anything that's coming off the property into this kind of flat area could be graded into there, as well as the roof areas that'll be going into here and the swaled grading that's getting into there, we were able to get over that 5.35 inch target for the 10-year storm. Somewhere around 5.5, I think is what was available relative to the impervious that's being directed there between this road, anything that's kind of anticipated in here, as well as the roof that's up there. And, you know, again, it's gravel. It's not quite impervious, but as it's compacted, it's basically an act like impervious. So we wanted to make sure that we were conservative in what we were looking at. It was assumed to be impervious, and we included the storage that was available for that. So that's kind of our plan and overall target for temporary stormwater management on the site. The specific numbers are, again, kind of detailed in that memo. But again, not all of this is going to be happening at the same time. We're going to take targets, or we're going to target areas that make sense at every interim condition that's on the site. But I think what we've graded out around here can be the workhorses for what we're trying to do as far as sending everything there, taking this offline and making sure it doesn't go directly into that area, especially in that interim condition when we don't have the full management in, but we have probably more impervious than is being directed in there in the existing. Will really help water infiltrate in as it goes through. And with all the storage we're able to get up here, and this basin is intended to overflow kind of down here. It's not shown in this plan, but based on the LiDAR contours we have, we don't have survey in this area, but there's kind of a swaled grading that goes down this way and ends up dumping into this instead of overflowing right into East Street. So the overflow from this would be intended to end up going down that way. So that's how we were thinking about approaching temporary stormwater. I know, obviously, it's been a big concern for you guys and wanted to make sure that we had it on a plan with our storage targets of what we were thinking, and really for the worst case scenario where this whole building is built, this driveway is built, this connection remains, we're doing all our parking here, this is built, and this remains active. It's not going to be the case throughout, but I think that is the worst case scenario that we do want to plan for, and planning for that kind of lets us piecemeal as these things do come through and install what needs to be installed for these particular areas as we're moving through that. So are there any questions on temporary stormwater management?
Landis?
Sorry. I would just bring up, so we don't have Beta here tonight, but they did a second report where a lot of these issues were addressed, and one of them was the temporary storage during construction. And they just recommend that a condition requiring a final interim condition plan or plans be provided to and approved by the commission prior to the start of each phase of the work. So that could be conditioned, just, you know, you have a lot of possibilities here. You really thought out hard, and I commend you at that, because that's what we're always pushing applicants to do. So that's great. So maybe before each of the different phases that you're working on, you just kind of submit something to the commission where you know a little better of what you need to do. So that's something that the commission could condition, and that they'd also recommended.
Okay. Dean, any question?
So those additional swells for the temp storage, did you do any sort of perk tests or have any data that those areas will handle the flow?
We didn't do any perk tests in this area. We have some that were right around there, and we also have a test pit that's in there. We didn't assume any infiltration for anything that's going on there. It's possible, because this is really the low point of the site, and I would say it's almost certainly the wettest. Groundwater could be relatively high there, which is why we didn't want to assume anything as far as perking or losing anything underground. So really what's just considered is the dead storage. I think obviously we will be encouraging that, and we will get some infiltration, but didn't want to consider that and didn't want to use that to say we're infiltrating the whole 5.35. What we're assuming is just dead storage.
It'll flow, right,
And it'll flow downstream to the next. And these are generally graded like maybe a foot or two below existing grade, so they're not really going too deep relative to what's out there. We are kind of pinched, so that's what we need to do, but it means we're not really going much deeper than ground surface, so there's less of a chance that we would encounter groundwater. We're not even going 3 or 4 feet down, it's a foot or two below existing.
Okay, thank you. No other questions?
No questions.
I do have a question. You talk a lot about the 10-year storm, and I'm guessing that that's based on the assumption that a lot of the impervious surfaces of the existing school will not be there in the future, and that changes the math.
It does. It's also specifically written into your bylaw that in the temporary condition, we need to manage the 10-year storm overflow, which is why I'm focusing so much on that. But obviously, it will handle all the smaller scale storms. As you're getting into the extreme storms, yes, it will overflow. That would also happen in the existing condition, right? We do know that there is some ponding that's going on there. But that's why, at your direction and in general, we want to have this extra storage and take this kind of thing offline. So in those extreme storms, we're doing as much as we can. We might still expect some flooding down at the end there, just because that's what happens in the existing condition, and we might have more impervious. But with everything that we're doing, ideally, we're demonstrating that it's an improved condition relative to what there would be.
But do we need to design for a bigger storm, given the possibility that the town elects not to take down the old building? And so the site 40, 50 years from now is still got all this extra impervious.
So the 10-year is just for the during construction, management of
Just the interim
stormwater?
condition. In the proposed condition, we're required by Mass DEP standards as well as yours to design to make sure that the 2, 10, 25, and 100, we're not increasing runoff that's on the site. And in our resubmitted report, we're demonstrating a pretty significant decrease. I think it's somewhere around 34 cubic feet per second for the flow that's coming off the site in the existing. We're down to about 29 in the 100-year storm, the most extreme event. So we're providing additional management despite increasing the impervious by, I don't know, about 3.5 acres.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, anything else, Doug?
No, that's it.
Media?
No questions. I do agree with Landis, with the suggestion regarding coming back to us and the phases, so I agree with that, but that's all I've got.
Al?
Well, first of all, how long a period of time do you expect this project to take?
Joel?
Hi, I'm Joel Kent.
Yeah, speak into the,
Yes.
Thank
My
you.
name's Joel Kent, I'm the construction manager. So the project currently is scheduled for a opening in August 2024. The demolition phase of the project would take place after the new building's occupied. So demolition would wrap up. We'd try and have the site in as finished a condition by about Thanksgiving 2024. And then the current schedule has a return in spring 2025 to do any kind of touch-up work, landscaping and things like that.
So that looks like probably 3 years that it's going to take to get this done. Okay, now, it looks like you're gambling that we won't have anything more than a 10-year storm in a 3-year period of time. And I don't think that's satisfactory. I think we have to have a little more of this holding back of the water on the site rather than releasing it all, because when it reaches 10-year storm, you're not going to take responsibility. That doesn't go with me. I've seen too many cases where things didn't work the way the engineers thought it would, and it exceeds the 10-year storm. And we seem to have more storms larger than 10 years at the present time with this global change of climate and all. Regardless of who's to blame for all of that, that's got nothing to do with it. It's changing, and we have to accept the fact that it's changing and plan accordingly. So I'm not satisfied that a 10-year storm is what we should be looking at here. As I said at the last meeting, I would hate to see all this water cross East Street and flood the houses on the other side of East Street. They're not currently flooded, so I don't want to see that the town is responsible for that happening. So you're being very conscious of the fact that the ball fields are in use, and they hope they will be in use. But maybe somebody has to look at the possibility that some of the ball field isn't going to be in use all the time because we're going to have a weather pattern that's different than what you're assuming is going to happen. And I don't think we can assume anything at this time. So this is a big improvement over what was presented first, and I'm disappointed that I didn't see plans before tonight. So that's beside the point, but it's very hard to analyze this whole thing in 10 minutes as you speak. So I'm not happy at this time with the planning here. I think we need to plan bigger.
Sure, and understood on all your concerns. One thing I would add for context on the 10-year storm, it would be up to that 4 inches of rainfall on the impervious on the site that we would expect absolutely no outflow, not assuming anything for exfiltration, not managing the 10-year storm, or at least for this southern part, managing the 4-inch storm. There would be no outflow from these basins up until that 4-inch storm. Once you get past that, you would expect outflow to leave the site, but the storage that is provided up until 4-inch rainfall, then you wouldn't see flow off of the site. Would be the intention of the basins and the stormwater management that we're showing here. So understanding your concerns, I just wanted to add context on that 10-year number. The intention would be no outflow up until that 4-inch storm for this side, and then up here, we're holding the full 5.35 before any flow does come off the site.
Well, we have in a neighboring town, a hospital that is out of business because of flooding. And for years, engineers kept saying that the drainage is sufficient to handle it. And all of a sudden, we have a storm, it fills up the basement of the hospital and wipes it out. Okay, now, it could have been foreseen that it's possible to have more than a 10-inch storm here in New England. So, as I say, I'm not happy that when I look at the minimal amount of storage you have proposed, I think we need more, so that's my opinion. But I'm in favor of seeing the project go forward, but I want to see it go forward and we have less problems than we've had other town projects in the recent past. So I want somebody to go back over this, and I think we need to think of more than a 10-inch storm.
10-year, you mean?
A 10-year storm, excuse me.
Okay. Landis, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I think we can only ask applicants to meet the requirements of our bylaw and regulations, and our bylaw, if the commission decided that 10-year storm was sufficient for stormwater management during construction, they've done their job. I don't want to speak for the town because I know there's been problems in the past, but I do know this project was also designed with the NCR, the more, the rainfall data that's more pertinent to today, while past projects weren't. So that's one improvement that we're designing for the NOAA, the NCRR, I think if I have the acronym correct. So we're designing for larger rainstorms, which is it's just more real-life information. That there is a relatively large field area. The conditions that I've also recommended, and with the beta review and talking to the town engineer, that there is some information that we're still waiting for. They're completing a survey. There's an 18-inch pipe on site that goes into a 12-inch pipe. We want to make sure that's big enough. So there's a couple of conditions that I've recommended through Beta and Carl Baldoff that that's going to be a bit of an ongoing stopgaps to make sure that the project is designed correctly and that we don't have any problems with stormwater. So I think that those will be helpful. I think that, if they design to what is required under the bylaw and regulations, I'm not sure if you can really go any further than that. Those are the only comments I have particular to this plan. Are you gonna discuss the other memo as well?
Oh, yeah, no, don't worry, that was just a temporary stormwater project.
Okay, that's what I thought.
All right, so this is just a plan to kind of guide the memo that was written up, again, at the request of the commission, town engineer, and the reviewing engineer, to analyze the capacity of the drain main that's in East Street and extending down to Edwards Drive. So yes, when we submitted this last week, the survey field work was actually taking place that day. So the model that we put together was based on record plans that were provided by Carl, and they had gone out and shot a couple additional inverts as well, while they were trying to investigate and uncover a couple of buried structures that were on the site here, particularly one that's right around there, as well as a buried manhole that was around there. So we used that information as well as record plans that the town had already provided to build the model and kind of test what we thought the capacity was in here and whether we were pushing it. Particularly, obviously the main connection for the site comes down on this side, and as Landis had mentioned, these are two 12-inch pipes that kind of extend out to there. Definitely under capacity, which is what's kind of demonstrated in the memo when it switches from, I think it's 14 or 15 inch in the existing addition at this manhole and goes down there. So we're putting the new connection in up here as far as stormwater leaving the site near that driveway with the management that's kind of happening up there, which obviously is not happening in the existing addition. Everything's kind of coming down here and going down Edwards Drive. And throughout this process, because obviously we've been talking to the town, getting record plans and getting their input on this, we've heard that capacity down there is a problem, and it's something that we wanted to be aware of, obviously, with everything that we're doing here. So this plan that's included as part of that memo shows based on these investigations, size of the pipe, what the slope is, what the design capacity is, what's going there in the existing, and what's going there in the proposed. So this trunk line that's I believe 12-inch, might be 10-inch. Again, it's something that we're trying to verify. Has a flow capacity of around 5 or 6 cubic feet per second. What we're proposing in the design that was submitted is connecting up here. It's right around what that capacity is. So, because we know that there's drainage coming up from this side, we did build in a couple of safeguards to prevent anything from our site from kind of overtopping that, and I'll go through that when I pull up the utility plan. So, the flow that's there can be passed by the pipe that's in there, but because we know there's already flow in there, we want to make sure that what we're sending is not overflowing that pipe. So we'll go over what we put in and built in for that. As far as the pipes that are further downstream, there's an 18-inch pipe at about 1%, 1.2% slope. The design capacity is somewhere around 13 cubic feet per second. Based on the analysis that we did and was included with that memo, we're getting a significant reduction of the existing flow in the 50-year storm is what we used to analyze, because we used the model that we kind of built out for the overall site, and that's TR20 methodology. And sorry, I know this is really inside engineering. TR20 is really for those kind of large storms to do the management for the site. We use the rational method to size pipes, which are those short intensity, high burst storms you get in like an inch over 10 minutes. That's typically what we do use to size pipes, and we used the 25-year storm when we're using the rational method. So we bumped it up because we were using that model, because it's hard to model flow that's coming from a large area with the rational method, with the software that's available. So we wanted to use what we had and had kind of built out for the overall model as far as management that's on site in the existing and proposed condition, and send those flows there. Based on that analysis, we've got about 23 cubic feet per second at this 18-inch pipe that's furthest downstream there, about 22, 23 in the existing, reduced to about 17 in the proposed. And same thing for this 18-inch pipe that's leaving the site. Capacity is around 13 and a half. The existing directed flow is about 22 and a half. So again, well over the capacity that's there, and the proposed is still slightly over capacity for what's going there in the 50-year storm, but significantly reduced by about 7 or 8 cubic feet per second as far as the peak flow. As Landis had mentioned, these two 12-inch pipes, this one is basically flat, it has almost no capacity. In both the existing and the proposed conditions, that's not passing the flow that's coming off the site, which is almost certainly why you see flooding that's in there ends up coming out through those grates, and water will back up in there because the pipes don't have the capacity to send that through there. And this pipe, also 12 inches, bit more slope, but again, not enough to pass in either the existing or the proposed. We are demonstrating a reduction in the proposed, but 12-inch pipe really doesn't have a lot of capacity at those slopes. So they are definitely undersized in both conditions. Then to just go to, so knowing that we're reducing that, we kind of submitted that in the memo, just saying, especially the larger stuff that's downstream, going down at Edwards, we're improving the conditions significantly. We're pretty much right at where that capacity is for those 18-inch pipes that are downstream, and have a couple other ideas to make sure that we're not overtaxing, especially East Street, and potentially where that connection is for Edwards. So let me see. Yeah, okay, right here. So this little inset includes where our connection is. So, sorry, let me go back. With this larger basin that we have here, we used to have, so there's drainage that's coming up from the roof area here, as well as overflow coming from these basins, and then really this entire road. We have management that's in place for all of those. We have underground basins, we have service basins, everything kind of ringing the road here, and then these pipes themselves are perforated pipe. But we're directing a lot of flow that's going to East Street that wasn't there previously. So with this basin expanded, that's the one that you saw in that temporary plan. It's something that we're incorporating in the proposed plan as well. We put in what I like to call basically a diversion manhole. So this pipe that's coming out here and now dumping into this basin, it's lower than the 24-inch pipe that's continuing out that way by about half a foot. So any flow, especially in lower flow conditions, and even in higher flow conditions, flow is going to be picked up by that. Everything that's coming up through here and is essentially about half a foot lower than what's going on down here is going to be directed into this basin, which will eventually overflow this way and follow grading kind of out that way. So we're taking a lot of flow offline from what would be directed towards here, and built in one more safeguard just to make sure that if East Street is full, flow would be able to leave our site and not overtax that. It's a little bit difficult to see, and I apologize for how small the inset is. There's really just a pipe with a flared end section. We set the invert of the pipe leaving that manhole pretty much at the crown elevation, so the top of the main that's in East Street. So as soon as that fills up and water level starts, it's no longer leaving the manhole, it's building back up on our site, it will flow out through that pipe to a little flared end section that'll dump again on that slight swell condition that extends down through there. So if East Street is full, whether from combination of our drainage, especially at this upper level, through our drainage or someone else's, anything that's excess will be directed back onto our site, onto green area, encouraged to infiltrate, and eventually get down to that small little basin that rings the outlet right by East Street and Edwards Drive.
And
So-
if I could just add for the commissioners, so I did provide in your packet the memo called Existing Drainage Infrastructure. We have the picture of the little inset.
Oh, yeah. So, with an eye on not wanting to direct any additional flow to that kind of 12-inch that I'll flip back to. Right here. We built in a couple safeguards in the final design of the site. First, directing initial flow to our larger basin that we created out here, and then providing an extra outlet. Should this become full, even with the reduced flow that's coming off of our site, it would also have a place to, again, dump back onto our site, roll over grass, be encouraged to infiltrate, and not flood the infrastructure that's in East Street. So with these particular ones, it is something that we want to look at. We either want to replace these or look at some other potential solutions. Maybe there would be a swale that comes in with its final condition that we can daylight some of the drainage to, so we don't need to replace all the pipe as it kind of goes down there. Or we upgrade the pipe to especially managed capacity in these really small pipes, really small and flat pipes that are being provided there. But overall, our analysis showed we're reducing flow pretty significantly in the proposed condition. The existing condition does have more flow and is over the capacity of the pipes that are downstream. The proposed capacity, or the proposed flow that's going there is about right at the capacity in that 50-year extreme storm. Obviously, we're going to maintain this kind of overflow area that is being provided there. So it'll still be there if the infrastructure does end up being overtaxed, and still be there as kind of a safeguard for rainfall that's leaving the site to kind of pond, again, be encouraged to infiltrate before it gets back into the catch basins and flows out. But with what we're doing to take flow offline up here, reducing flow that's coming off here, and then looking at solutions to either upgrade the capacity here or just take, similar to what we're thinking about for temporary management, just take that flow offline and maybe dump to a swale that's graded along there, so we don't have to worry about under capacity pipes that are on our site. It'll just all kind of naturally flow to where it does in the existing condition. And it'll pond up, flow out, and kind of go out the same way, but we can eliminate 600 or 700 feet of pipe and encourage it to infiltrate. So that's kind of overall view of how we were thinking about approaching it, making sure that we weren't overtaxing it, and what we want to do to make sure that, especially in these cases, which these pipes we do still have to use, we will have a solution that gets us the capacity to actually send the flow that we want to off the site in both the existing and the proposed condition.
And this is just for like really, really strong storms, right?
Yes,
Worst case scenario is that's what you're really planning for.
yes. So yeah, in the smaller storms, your 210s, like lower intensity, 3 to 4 to 5 inches, those will be able to pass the flows that are coming from the site. They're not as significant, but we want to plan for those 25, 50 high intensity storms, especially when we're doing drainage, because that's when you get those flooding conditions or water coming back up through catch basins, and we want to avoid that with anything that we're sending off here.
So Beta did, in SW10 and SW11, discuss the survey, and should the existing condition survey and questions be completed prior to the permit issuance. Again, the commission could condition the permit so that the survey be submitted upon completion prior to the construction, with the analysis demonstrating that the two 12-inch pipes on Bird Middle School and the 18-inch RCP to the west of Edwards Drive are adequate to convey the flows without flooding, or provide the commission with revisions, if need be, of plans that adequately address the issue. So once they get more information, if it needs to be revised, then it needs to be revised, and they need to submit it to the commission.
And to speak to the survey, the field work was performed basically when I was submitting this. It's been incorporated in the survey. I got that message from our survey department yesterday. So we do now have additional information. It's not just based on the record plans and the sketches that were sent over, incorporated into our survey. So we'd be able to do that, both send the survey over and update any analysis we did based on the inverse that they shot there.
Question, on the existing 12-inch and other culverts there, would it be prudent to run a inspection camera down there to make sure there's no obstructions in the culverts?
So we did do that to the extent that it was possible, starting from a catch basin that was there in the schematic design phase. So we were able to make it down to about this pipe that was there. This manhole, there was a catch basin that was uncovered there. I believe it's connected to a manhole that should have been picked up in our survey. Those are buried underground, so we had no access to it. We saw when we got to the end of the camera line, I was out there with Phil McCall and DPW, that there was a structure there, but we couldn't find it. We had no idea where it was. It's now been uncovered. We could go back out and inspect that as well. If it's determined from the survey to be 12-inch as well, I don't know how much worth it would have, because whether it's in good condition or bad, 12 inches is not passing the flows that are coming in either the existing or the proposed. So more than likely something should be done even if it's in pristine condition, because 12-inch just cannot really pass the flows that are coming from this site in any condition with the impervious that's there. So yeah, we absolutely can do that, and we do have video for this stretch. Couldn't get in that stretch.
Excuse me, you're saying that that pipe is inadequate?
This existing pipe?
Yes.
Yes.
And what is the plan to do anything about that?
So we'd be anticipating replacing it with a higher diameter pipe that could pass that. These things have now just been added to the survey, so we can update the design plans that would do that. We just basically did this from record plans, so we would have the analysis to present you there. They were going out on the day we submitted this to actually incorporate them into the survey. So the design would need to be updated to show pipes that do have that capacity, as well as added to the pipe capacity model that's included as an appendix in the stormwater report. So those calculations do need to be updated. We were thinking potential solution would be upgrade the diameter of those to the point where it could actually pass those flows, or pursue something with a potential grading solution. Maybe put a small swale that extended down to there and just pick up the pipe a little bit further upstream and daylight it into something that's overland, and then just not worry about pipe capacity or not have to replace these that are further downstream. We just need to worry about swale capacity. Again, improving stormwater condition that's on the site, and then not having to reinstall 600 or 700 linear feet of pipe in that higher capacity that could just send it right off the site. There might be a more green infrastructure solution, the inverse that we do have out there.
So you're saying that one or the other of what you just described would be done?
Yes.
Okay.
You said that's asbestos pipe?
To my knowledge, everything on the site is, based on the record plans that we have. So that's what we're assuming in our quantities and in our specs, that all the drain pipes on the site are asbestos-containing materials.
Oh, is that part of your, at this
Built in
point,
the 50s or
Landis, is that
60s,
included
very
as
popular.
part of your conditions, that we get a review of whatever is done here? That they pick one or the other, either replace the pipe or provide additional
The-
storage?
The condition was that the results of the survey, if they change let me read the condition because I can't think of it. The condition was that the survey be submitted upon completion of prior to construction, and the analysis demonstrating that the two 12-inch pipes and the 18-inch pipe are adequate to convey the flow. And now it seems like they have more information that he's saying that.
It's not
that it's
adequate.
not
To
adequate.
be fair, I haven't looked at the survey and
Right, it seems
definitely
to be-
confirmed those are 12
Yeah.
inch, but I trust the DPW in assessing pipe size, whether it's 12 or 14.
If they change
gonna
it,
be low.
yes, they would have to provide us with the information, or you could wait for them to decide what they want to do before issuing the permit. That's up to you.
It sounds to me like something has to be done.
It sounds like
And
it.
that's
yes,
not what you're saying here.
What I'm saying, right, at the time, what the condition was, if there appeared to be a change,
Okay.
that they need to submit it to us. But,
So I think we need to change that, if there is, that there is, and they need to submit their plan of what they're gonna do to resolve the issue. Is that,
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
If the commission decides to close tonight and issue their decision. Can I ask when you believe you would have the information of what needs to happen there with plans, revised plans?
Yeah, sure, that would be maybe a week or two, at most. It's just two pipe runs, where they're replacing that. That's easy enough to analyze as far as capacity goes and update on the plans. And if it's a more grading solution that we want to pursue, a little bit longer, but it's pretty simple swale, just making sure that whatever we can pick up would be able to daylight and then could bypass those pipes. So, short amount of time, but.
So the commission, so you could potentially continue again to submit that rather than it being a condition? I know you're under a timeline constraint for some of the phases of your project, so.
If that's commission's preference, yes, absolutely. For that particular piece, then we're going to make sure that the design works there. Obviously, we needed to incorporate information that we weren't able to get at the time that I needed to make this submission. But yeah, I think there are pretty easily workable solutions there. It's mostly about putting pen to paper and make sure that it's incorporated.
In either case, whatever you do there, that pipe is gonna be removed? Either pipe replaced, it's inadequately sized at this point from what you have seen. So you're gonna replace the pipe with a larger diameter.
Yep.
Or put a swale in to handle that.
Yeah,
That
I
amount of
would want to
flow?
see what the survey came up with as far as material. So if this is just, RCP and we're taking it offline, I don't think I'd bother removing it. I would just kind of leave it in place. And if we were going with the swale solution, not replacing the pipe, just leave that in place. This is going to be disconnected further upstream. We'll have a structure that
If
ends
it's-
up dumping to whatever's going on.
This
there.
asbestos pipe, it would be removed?
Yes.
Oh.
That'd be the intention.
Even if you weren't gonna use it, you'd take it out?
Potential, I'd have to consult with the project
Yeah.
team, but I think the directive we've generally gotten from the town is if there's asbestos containing pipe, we want to take it out.
So that would be, okay, so I think that, again, should be included if we're gonna close that now, that,
The ground?
regarding if it is asbestos pipe, that it would be removed. Just, from all you've presented tonight, we're talking initially about during construction of what you are, your drainage and how that's gonna work. Ultimately, you are now, once construction is completed, are we prepared, or is all this gonna handle the 100-year storm?
Yeah, so again, we have to design to match DEP standards, which are also incorporated into the ERAs. We have to decrease rates and volumes, I believe, in Walpole for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm that's leaving the site. So the existing and the proposed conditions are both analyzed in the 100-year storm. We're reducing pretty significantly flow that's coming off the site in the 100-year storm by about 16%.
Okay. Okay. Landis, do you have anything more that you want to bring up at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Did you go over, pretty much went over all your different submittals, revised plans, existing, the temporary storage, stormwater storage?
We spent a lot of time discussing this. Is there, I think, we'll go through the commission. Anybody else have any questions on this specific issue? Dean?
Nope.
Bailey?
Of the pipe.
Doug?
No.
Emilio? Al?
No.
Okay. And if you've got more to present?
Kind of depends on you all. You've seen most of what I could present before, but I'll briefly go through plan for stormwater management in this kind of proposed condition. And again, I apologize if you've heard me talk through this before. For the driveway, this is kind of the high point on the site in Washington. It slopes down that way. To manage along the driveway, we've got a series of swales, bioretention basins, detention basins. And we're basically sheet flowing water from this driveway and this parking lot to provide management as it comes down. It's being managed in place. It's being picked off from this basin and directed to a larger infiltration area there to provide even more recharge and reduce the quantity of stormwater that's coming off the site before it eventually, in this design, connects back into here and goes kind of goes down that pipe and off the site. The roof areas are proposed to be managed by these.
Well, can I interrupt you for a second? Sorry. Can you just go over, I know our regulations require a foot of freeboard for the extended basins, which you're not meeting, so there's a waiver requirement. I know Beta reviewed that and is pretty comfortable with it, but can you explain that a little bit so
Sure.
the commissioners understand?
So the freeboard requirement that's written into the bylaws and the way that we discussed it and interpreted with Beta It's a foot between where the top of the storage is for any of these defined surface basins and where the emergency spillway is. So flow in larger storms that's coming off, there needs to be a foot of separation between those to make sure that we're not having any conditions where things spill over outside of the basins there, causing erosive conditions. In almost all of these, there is also a lower flow area drain overflow that will pick up flow in those smaller storms and send it out. The intention for the emergency spillway is really only to be used in the 25 to 100-year storms in those extreme conditions. In accordance with Beta's letter, anything as far as these basins that specifically dumps into a parking lot, so this basin and anything that kind of picks up, I believe, really off pavement, was regraded and remodeled to make sure that we did have that 1 foot of freeboard. I think there were maybe 6 remaining basins that aren't dumping onto pavement, but we had requested a waiver for providing that 1 foot of freeboard. We provided the table that would have been in the Beta response letter. There's one that provides 6 inches, and then everything is more around the 9 to 10 inch range, the difference between where the top of the storage is and where that emergency spillway is. And that's, there's 2 small bioretention basins in there that are getting such low flow kind of directed to them. Even in the 100-year storm, they're not even getting close to where the top of storage is. So we are asking for the requirement there, but the flow going in there is so minimal, it's really just kind of these walkways, because this is pervious pavement that's right there. But it's not even getting close, it's just infiltrating into the ground. This one, I believe, again, because it's just kind of dumping onto there, we wanted to maximize our storage, is 9 inches. I think we had modified this one to be 1 foot, and then there were a couple more. This one that overflows into a downstream basin, I think was a couple inches off that 1 foot. And I believe this one, that again flows into a downstream basin, not into any sort of pavement, that was more around the 9 to 10 inch level rather than the full 1 foot. Again, all of these have these area drains that are significantly lower than the emergency spillway. Most of the flow is going to end up just dumped by pipe to the basin that's downstream, and again, dumped by pipe to the basin that's downstream. But in those extreme conditions, anywhere that's dumping into a parking lot or heading off the site was modified to get to that 1 foot of freeboard. I think we requested waivers for 5 or 6 in that letter.
And that's, everyone was provided the Beta report, so it's on it's number 4 where the chart is that shows differences.
What else was you wanted to address? Did you have something else that you wanted him to address?
No, just when you were going over the different BMPs, I just wanted to bring that up, so. If I stopped you in the middle, you can continue.
No, that's fine. That's my favorite part. We've also got roof area from here dumping into a bioretention as well as the surrounding area that again overflows into another downstream basin. The whole intention, and kind of as I'm walking through here, is to have multiple sources for all this water to hit as far as storage, potential infiltration, and treatment to make sure that it's staged and we have backups for especially any of these smaller basins, especially like just larger storage is kind of downstream. We want to get those multiple stages of treatment. We want to make the stormwater as clean as possible, encourage infiltration to the greatest extent possible. And then pretty kind of similar coming around the north, we have small surface basins ringing these where we're going to have sheet flow that comes in, overflow goes to infiltration structures. We talked about this kind of diversion area that's going to direct more of the flow to this very large basin that we were able to grade. And then this driveway that's being established at the East Street, because of how we're pinched between the athletic fields and the grading that's up there, basically trying to propose to manage in place with the perforated pipe and stone, so any catch basins that are located on there will dump straight to a drainage main that's 24-inch perforated pipe and stone. There's a series of outlet control structures with weirs that will hold that water back before it eventually flows over and heads out. So it's providing that management kind of in place just with the infrastructure we would need to install no matter what, which is those catch basins, the drain main that collects everything that goes through in an area where we're most pinched for being able to do service basins on site. So that's basically it. Again, the whole intention was to send everything downstream to something else before it eventually dumps to a grass area and ends up down there. So trying to make sure there were multiple levels for everything that we were doing here as far as stormwater.
And Beta reviewed the hydraulic calculations, and so Carl looked them over. Also, the sediment, they have a series of sediment forebays that Beta was comfortable with. There's, I think, water quality units throughout the site as well, that both Beta and Carl were comfortable with. They were reviewed, so.
And from a pre-treatment standpoint, the biggest change that we had made, there are, for the curb breaks that end up flowing to these, there's just a change in structure to something that Beta had discussed and recommended. It's sort of like a catch basin that is also, like, water's gonna flow through there into a grate with a little bit of, with a sump beneath it that's easier to clean. Carl is more comfortable with it from a maintenance standpoint, rather than a curb break that flows out through there. It would basically just be incorporated as part of the curb breaks that are being proposed there. I think it was maybe about 15 locations throughout the site that we were proposing it. From a pre-treatment standpoint, based on our discussions with Beta, that in and of itself, based on testing they provided to us, was somewhere around 65% TSS. I think we used 50 in the calculations that we submitted, but very good removal of suspended solids and easier to maintain relative to stone diaphragm, which had come up as a maintenance issue both here and in peer review letter previously.
Right, so with Beta and Carl and I were also just concerned with the operation and maintenance plan and the town's ability to maintain all the different structures. This is a little unusual from the other sites around town, that there's multiple different BMPs spread out through the whole entire site, some bioretention areas, some infiltration, extended basins, sediment forebays, a lot of different stuff, which we want to make sure that DPW and the town is able to handle. So one of the conditions that Beta put in was that DPW approve the final O&M plan. What I would like to do, and this would go hand in hand with the MS4 permit, which the town is supposed to get sort of annual training, is to do a workshop with the DPW in regards to maintenance of bioretention areas and porous pavement and some of these different BMPs that are being integrated into this site.
Who provides that training?
We would set it up with the consultant that we've been using on the MS4 stuff. Just to kind of refresh or help train people is what you do with these different BMPs, which can be very effective, but they're different.
Yeah.
They're not just they're not always just mowing a depression in the ground, so.
Like, can I go?
Okay, anything else you have?
Not unless you have questions for me. I know I've talked
Okay.
through plenty of
There's a lot
times.
of
Wanted to make sure I
information.
hit those two issues pretty hard and walk you through the memo that, I know there were about 10 attachments in what we sent back, in case you didn't have a chance to read through the memo, give you the background on what we were looking at and considering to address those issues.
Lance, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I would just acknowledge that there's, a lot of information that's been submitted between the applicant and Beta that's gone through to the commission tonight. So I understand it's a lot to digest. Information comes to my department. I think we've had it since May 20th. So if any commissioners want stuff, they can always let me know, and we will get them to it. But I've looked at this stuff, Beta's looked at this stuff, Carl's looked at this stuff. As far as in-house, I think this project has been pretty well reviewed
Okay.
compared to other past projects, I would say.
Dean, anything?
No,
You're in?
no questions. Good job.
Bailey?
Same, nothing, excellent
Doug,
job.
anything else?
No.
Media?
Also.
Al?
No,
Okay. You suggest that we could close the hearing? You have a,
it's up to you guys. If you're comfortable with information that was submitted tonight and are willing to condition it, I think that's possible to do that.
you have in your, what you prepared, that which would be information that would be provided in the future that then would come before us for review, or with you for review and Carl, or for review?
Yes, there's the interim construction stormwater management, that there would be periodic reviews based on their phasing. And then the other one was based on the survey, because at the time, they were still in the process of the survey and those pipes. So you can condition that, as we discussed tonight, that the changes that are being made to those pipes be submitted to the commission obviously prior to construction.
Okay. So we'll make a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Moved.
I'll
Do we
second it.
have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All abstain? 501. Okay, thank you. The order, you had, give us some of that information, I think.
Yeah, so in my reports, based on the information that was submitted and Bader's recommendation, there was some special conditions that I recommended. The interim conditions plan, a plan shall be provided to the commission prior to each phase of work addressing stormwater management. You can put for approval, if you so please. Then the one regarding the survey, so we can tweak that a little bit to provide the revised plans on the pipe sizing. I don't know how you want to word it, but we can work on that. Then the stormwater pollution prevention plan, that the final copy be submitted to the commission for approval prior to construction. Construction phasing, the applicant shall submit an update prior to each construction phase regarding completion of each phase, timeline, stormwater interim plan as per SW7 for review. And then this was a suggestion by Beta that the O&M should be approved by the DPW. And then my other special conditions would be that, so as with the Wetlands Protection Act local bylaw, we like to have an as-built plan of the basins prior to them being active. So basins shall be as-built, and as-built plans submitted to the Conservation Commission for approval prior to becoming active. Sometimes they wrote post-construction, but post-construction can mean something different to the contractor that it means to us. Basically, we want to know that the basin, the extended basin or the bioretention area has been completed per post-construction spec prior to it being used that way. So sometimes those areas are used for interim stormwater management. We want to make sure it's good to go. A pre-construction meeting shall be held with the conservation agent, contractor, engineer prior to the beginning of each phase. I will also say with these town projects is, with past town projects, and I imagine with current town projects, is there's usually weekly or bi-weekly meetings that are held with the contractor and the town and other people involved, which I'm usually invited to. So a lot of issues that pop up along the way can be addressed.
Okay. You have, in there, the contacts on site for you to contact if there's any issues of a 24/7 basis?
Yeah, that's usually in our boilerplate
Okay,
condition, so that would
Okay.
be,
okay. Anything else that you want to?
oh, so you want the, we'll include the asbestos, any asbestos pipe shall be removed? Is that what you wanted?
I'm just thinking, would there be any other asbestos pipe on site? If we say that, it means any pipe on site to be removed.
So the 12-inch pipe?
We're definitely talking about the pipe, if it is asbestos
The 12,
from
12
that-
inch, it's the 12-inch.
Goes out to East Street from that manhole?
Yeah, that would be the last drainage pipe on site that we're not specifically calling out as being removed, because based on the survey, based on video inspection we've done, it all looks kind of like AC, and you don't really wanna be making those guesses. And we would be removing most of that drain pipe as part of the proposed design anyway. The only thing that was even considered to stay in, maybe a piece of the southern trunk line, but when we saw it might be AC, we had it in scope to remove as far back as schematic design a year or so ago. At least heading out to what was surveyed or videotaped.
In AC, you mean asbestos containing?
Yes.
So what have you, how you got that worded? We would that pipe, if it is cement, that should be removed. And if we find any other on-site to remove it? Town says they'd like it removed if it's there, right? And that was the message you got?
And, yeah, and that's what we are showing on the demolition plan that would have been included in here. But yes, that's the direction that we've got, that's what we're showing.
We don't need to say it if the town's saying
If it's
it.
in the plan.
Yeah, it doesn't, we don't have to mention it.
You can leave it on, that pipe definitely we
The
want.
12-inch
Yeah.
drainage pipe to East Street.
Okay.
In the southwest corner of the.
Yeah. Anything else we need to know?
Well, I don't know, to make Al, you a little more comfortable, do you want to just throw in a condition, you know, any stormwater above the 10-year storm events should be managed during construction? Which I'm sure it will be, but if that sort of
Well,
addresses
I
your
think you should
concern.
put something in there,
Okay. So, like what, like I just said?
you know?
I mean, I don't think the town's gonna allow mayhem to occur on East Street, but you never know, right?
Well, we've had other situations.
I know, that's why I wanna bite my tongue, but, yeah, so. How do you wanna word that?
I guess to any emergency, stormwater issues should immediately be brought to the attention of conservation agent and the town engineer. And the suggested plan for resolving the issue. I don't know what, if you or Carl aren't available with it, must go to somebody at the DPW. You know, they would be
Yeah.
involved
Oh, yeah.
if there's,
If there's an issue that occurs beyond what has been designed already, it will have to be dealt with, definitely. It's not just gonna be ignored. I mean, it'll be dealt with through the SWEP, it'll be dealt with.
that, that it should be you and Carl and/or the DPW for a resolution.
Okay.
Because you may not, depending when it is, you don't know when it's gonna happen. You may or may not be available, either one of you.
Okay.
Okay? That work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Need another piece of paper?
I know Stephanie is on top of everything's being said, if I can't read my scribbles all over the paper, so. And we have a recording, so I think we're good.
Okay, someone want to make that a motion to include those items in the order?
So moved.
Second.
You have a second, was that medium? All in favor?
Aye.
And I can vote for the order, right?
Not if
No.
you didn't review the last
Yeah.
hearing.
Okay, abstain,
Okay.
501. When I sign sign the paper.
You can sign the paper as being present at the meeting, but, okay. Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, folks. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can sign it that I was present.
I worked this weekend. My sister's graduating college.
Do we have some paperwork to sign?
I brought my son.
Oh my gosh.
That was
Do you
crazy.
have anything for us to sign?
It took 18 hours, it took 18 hours to get down there.
Okay.
It took 12 to get back, 14 to get back.
You're a good brother.
We want the graduation celebration up in Tennessee, Smoky Mountains. That's why I just,
This is the last one.
Yeah,
saw a lot of bear. I've never seen any bear in the wild before.
That was so cool.
Smoky Mountains has a lot of bears.
Is that something you can,
What'd you got?
if we sign it at our next meeting, or does that have to be done?
So many cars on the road.
Or-
It was.
I'll talk to Landis and find out what the
On my
protocol
street
would be
in
for that.
Walpole, there's been at least
Okay.
3
Corvette out of
parties.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
My daughter drive it.
Oh, yeah?
Good.
I'm not, whatever.
You stood
Have
on the
minutes in
porch
here, right?
I did.
What's going on?
Did.
I can hear
You
the
said you weren't,
music
and you
jam
did.
to it, that's always fun.
We're buying a high school.
Crank them up.
Since the price went.
Okay.
I've been super in my Mustang.
Someone want to move the minutes from May 11th?
May 11th.
That's even neither. So moved?
11th, minutes?
Looked good.
Look good.
May 11th. Missed it, Jack. Al did a great job.
Okay,
Yes.
we include
plus.
that in there? Did somebody, was that a motion to
Yeah, no,
accept the
yeah.
minutes? That was,
Second.
do we have a second?
Second.
Video. All in favor?
Aye.
501.
I have to abstain.
Oh, 402. Okay. I didn't read who was here. Oh, I see, both of us. Okay, so these are okay. Minutes.
There's one in there. There wasn't one in the, okay.
Conservation land, that's the, North Street on the agenda.
Where are we?
Under general business.
Oh, yeah, it's just a catch-all for any conversations that we need to have. I don't think it would be in there.
Nothing new on North Street at this point.
They're working on the survey. I'm trying to get them to speed up a little bit so that we have it, so we can get a quote, some quotes for capital budget, which needs to be in by June 17th, so hopefully it'll all come together.
Okay, master plan, we got anything
Update,
new?
Meeting's May 31st, next meeting.
May 31st?
Yep.
Okay. You got the Pinnacle update, what's, that the trail?
So there's no update in regards to town council's review of that Pinnacle Point situation,
Are we still waiting for a response?
more or less, yes.
Have we asked them to get us a response recently?
Well, Glenn Maffey, at Board of Selectmen, has asked them to
He
get a
has?
response, yes.
Okay. Okay, enforcement orders, nothing new on any of these?
Just with Palmer Lane 3 and 4, I did have a visit at the site with the Willett Pond volunteer group and the applicant, Michael Brait, and we reviewed the plantings, and we were all satisfied that the plantings, the trees were doing really good. They were the main issue, that we wanted to make sure that the trees that were planted were okay. So I recommend that you vacate the enforcement order.
Okay, someone want to make that a motion?
Sure.
We got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
600. Okay, so that one we can take off,
Yep, so we'll just send them a letter.
okay? And Burns Avenue, nothing new on that at this point, right?
Nothing new that would be discussed out of the executive session.
Okay. Extensions, we've got 2 extensions.
So we have 2 extensions. The first one is Rainbow Pond, DP 315-1149. This is for the treatment of Rainbow Pond. They've requested an extension.
Someone make that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All abstain? 501. Okay, and Industrial Road, what was that one?
That's 18 Industrial Road. That's something that's been going on for years. That it was a remediation project that they were remediating the groundwater. And
Who's this,
this is Fish.
Fish, what
Callahan?
was
Yeah.
Fish Callahan, that's now, it's no longer Fish, but it's the same people,
Same people.
yeah.
Yep. So one, right, so they continue their condition, they continue the order to, they're still remediating. And once they're done remediating, they will do some stormwater management. So if it's okay with the commission, they gave us a larger check, and rather than dealing with the larger check, they gave us kind of twice as much as the new, because a few years ago, we recalculated the extension fee. So if the commission would extend it for 2 years rather than 1 year, then we would just give it to them for 2 years, if that's okay.
Do we get any kind of, like, status updates? Like, that, do you get them, you know? Like, where are they in the process? Like, are things moving along?
We get a letter from them requesting the extension.
Oh, if this is a listed DEP site, it'll be, it's public knowledge. It'll be
Okay.
on the DEP
Yeah.
website.
What the status is?
Yep, that's a public knowledge, so that's the field I work in, so the DEP query tool.
I think they're just still.
Curious,
they're
because
still
you
rec-
say it's been happening, they've been extending, and now they want a 2-year extension?
Well,
They didn't ask for a 2-year extension.
Oh.
We could send back the check for $200 and ask them to send us a check for $100, but I figure
Ah.
maybe we could just give them a 2-year.
That's where I was going.
What was that comment?
Nothing, nothing.
This is for their monitoring
Was
well?
it in a manila envelope?
This is their this is for monitoring wells. So-
Yes, it's
Yes.
pumping and
Sure it
treating, it's probably SVE system,
Oh.
sparging.
Curious.
Someone make that a motion?
So moved.
We got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
I mean, we
600.
include in the letter after 2-year period, we need to know
Well,
what
if
the end
they tell
result
you,
is.
then I'm comfortable with it,
I'll
but
look
if
it
they're
up.
not telling you and they're just constantly asking for extensions, I would be nice to know that
Yep.
they're giving you a status of
Yeah.
where they are in the process.
Gotcha. They do give us a status every now and then. I can't remember if there's one in the last letter.
Perfect.
They just keep on giving us money, and we keep on extending it.
Is that we're able to buy this great conservation land, I love it.
How do I get into that record?
And it used to be John Lennon that sent the letters in too, so.
Really?
He's not signing them anymore?
No, he's not signing them.
Oh, you're going
Yeah.
No, Yoko's not
To
signing
keep
them
those
either.
signatures later, they're worth something.
Oh, yeah, Callahan Company.
Okay, so did you vote, or did we just?
Yes, we
Yeah, we
voted,
Okay.
600. Appeals. Did you have a court date?
So there was supposed to be a court date today at 2:30 at Superior Court in Boston, but the judge decided to postpone it until June 13th.
Is that, was that the one we went to?
So so the one we went to was at District Court. We
Yeah.
have not, they have not issued a decision on that yet.
Was there another appearance at district court?
Nicole and I went to, right, sorry, so. If you wanted to, yeah, I would suggest if you wanted, it's on the agenda, if you want to discuss what happened at district court
Okay.
last meeting, last time we went, that's why I forgot you weren't there, then at the end of your agenda, go into executive session, I'll give you update.
Okay. So you got 40B application for Darwin Commons. Is there anything to involve us?
Not directly, nope. So this is a 40B application, the end of Darwin Drive, Wall Street Development,
Pass them on as well.
are there multiple copies?
Oh, no,
I don't
it's a
think
full
there is,
set.
it's only one. So it's for, how many? 28 units,
6 total townhouses.
what?
28 townhouses. 6
28
total units.
townhouses, 6 buildings. So it's not within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, except it probably would have required a land disturbance permit if it wasn't a 40B project.
Yeah, 40Bs, they don't do the bylaws, right?
They don't do, right, so the zoning board acts as the permitting authority for the town.
Is there anything we need to advise the zoning board about? Or just let them handle it?
So my only comment was just sort of a general comment regarding the density of this proposed project should not be detrimental to the town's water supply.
It's very close
Where
by.
is this on Walpole, Washington Street? Darwin.
Yeah, so it does back up to the,
Our town is obligated to have a
Town
certain percentage of housing as 40B.
land,
Yep.
the wells, some of the wells are close by, the ones that are off of Washington Street.
So where is this? So
Wait,
it's down by
they're
the DPW?
No, so if you, let's see, if you're on Washington Street and you go up Common towards Route 1, you take a right really quickly. That's Darwin.
Yeah, it's right next to
Oh,
Jarvis.
right.
It's
It
right
was
next to
that cute little
Jarvis.
residential area, that's right.
No longer cute.
I remember.
Okay.
And they're on
So-
town water and sewer, you said?
Will this project be on town water and sewer? Is that your question? I didn't say.
Your comment was that it should not be detrimental to the town's water supply. I'm just curious.
Right, because the wells are nearby. The wells are nearby to this proposed activity.
Okay.
It was a very general comment. I thought,
That's on a hill, too.
it's on a hill.
Okay,
Perfect.
so nothing for us on that. You got another one, planning board of Heidi Street? The,
Heidi, right, so Heidi's from the planning board. I really honestly don't quite understand this one. It's supposedly a subdivision, but it looks like it's one house, so.
anything involve us?
I couldn't tell. So it was just a general comment saying if they're within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act, local bylaw, stormwater erosion control bylaw, they need to file with us.
What about the land disturbance?
Stormwater erosion control bylaw, yeah,
Oh, you mentioned them all?
yeah,
Okay.
I did.
All right. And another 40B at Pinnacle. What's,
Right, so again, I only have one plan. Pinnacle Points, so the Wall Street Development did file a 40B plan with the zoning board of appeals. It's going before the zoning board of appeals on June 1st for twenty-eight townhouse type units.
oh, they'll have to file with us, won't they?
They will have to file with us, yes, so I was making, my suggested comments were two. One, that, the historic mill complex is still in appeal until this is resolved. The Conservation Commission requests to reserve their comments, other than that related to the Pinnacle Point Trail. So I thought that perhaps the commission would want to bring that up to the zoning board of appeals. That the Pinnacle Point Trail has been used across this property for many years. I know it's been in effect since I've been a conservation agent, so over 23 years, to access the Pinnacle Point's town conservation land at the end of Pinnacle Point Misty Lane. The order of conditions and subdivision plan for the Pinnacle Point subdivision addressed the trail, and an easement was to be conveyed to the town as a condition of the approval. Unfortunately, this did not occur. It is strongly recommended for the benefit of the residents of this development and the town residents that a trail along the river be included in the approved plan. So my suggestion is bring up the issue of the trail to the zoning board of appeals, and if possible, incorporate the trail into the project. Not that bug that keeps on bothering me.
I don't see any bug.
Which is not uncommon for 40B projects to incorporate some kind of residential passive recreation.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so,
So does that sound like
did
something
you-
you guys want to do?
did you, did you say that they would require a filing with conservation? Or is it pending the appeal?
Right. I did not specifically say that, but I will.
Because they would have to file with us, right?
Yes.
For this?
Yep.
They're within our jurisdiction, yeah. Plus the appeal issue. Okay. All right, that was it, I guess, on here. Then we have executive session. We don't have anything else, is that correct? Anybody have anything else? Okay.
So you just.
We're going to conclude our regular meeting, and we're going to have executive session, so we'll make a motion to close the regular meeting, and that we will then vote to go into executive session.
So moved.
Got a second?
Have a roll
That's-
call vote, please.
That's to close the meeting.
Oh.
Okay, now we'll do, so are we off?
Well, you want to vote to go into executive session while you're on.
Oh, while we're on, we have to vote for that, okay. So we'll make a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
We got a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Dean Bevis, aye.
Aye.
I guess my
Lee?
name.
Doug? Medio? Al?
Aye.
Jack, aye. Okay.